Gotta turn up my mic and welcome everyone to another edition of The Real Deals. Tonight, we have some serious business to talk about and sadly not so serious business. So we're gonna get into it right away. We're talking about when is that head spinning a little too fast that we gotta call the exorcist? What do we need to know? What do we need to tell him? How do we go about doing this? And what are the signs that somebody seriously needs an intervention? Oh, I love it. Technical issues. So hang tight. We're going to start the show right now.
The Real Deals are on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deals. Kenneth and Farrah Rose Deal.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's had a great week. I know I have. We have had, for whatever reason, it's that time of year again, and things are ramping up. It's overwhelming right now. As everybody is familiar with, this time of year, Halloween, it kind of draws everybody out. And everybody's got the curiosity gnomes coming out, okay? So we've got people playing with Ouija boards. We've got people just exploring a variety of different things. So consequently, what you have is when you have so much curiosity going on, you have a lot of odd occurrences. Speaking of odd occurrences, when I was getting ready for the show last night, kids, all of a sudden I looked at my phone and I don't understand how to use certain things on a computer. My phone's ringing. The person calling me didn't call me. I didn't call them. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this on top of a couple other things is really strange. Do I need to call an exorcist? No, I'm not playing, okay? I'm not playing. Before we get going, though, we've always got to sign in and start off with our St. Michael prayer. So everyone, let's take a minute. It's time to pray. In nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sanctus, sic ut et principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Sancta Michael Arcangele, defende nos in previo, contra nequitiam et insidias diaboli esto presidium. Imperire Deus, supplices de precamur tuque, princeps maletia celestis satana maliosque, spiritus malignos, qui ad perditionem animarum pervegantur in mundo divina virtute in infernum detrude. Amen. Okay, so I got to put on my glasses for this one, you guys, because the fine print. And that's what we always think about, okay? Tonight's show, we're going to be talking about how to call the exorcist, how to call the office of exorcism, when to call, why to call, what kind of stuff you need, all right? Before I get started, a quick shout out to everybody in chat. Thank you so much for joining us. So good to see you back, Athena. Tony C, keep them behaving. Doris, good to see you. Bloody Mary, Santo. Give us a like. Share the video if you can, because every time you share it, it boosts it up in ratings. And every time you hit a like, or, you just leave it playing in the background, it also gets people's attention and it gets shared. So, I see Donna's in the house tonight. So thank you all for joining us once again. If you are new to the channel and you have never watched any of our videos before, I have to tell you up front that I am a religious demonologist, Roman Catholic. I have been doing what I do to help people for almost 40 years. What I do with priests and exorcists, 30, almost 30. In where I'm doing it now, recently, the wonderful thing is that even though the office of exorcism, the official office of exorcism within the Catholic Church was open over 800 years ago, there's always been exorcists. There's always been specific people that were chosen, and I should say priests, not people, okay? Because you just don't grab somebody off the street and say, oh, yeah, you're going to be an exorcist. So these men, these holy men, were appointed and anointed for their level of holiness and how they conducted their life, their priesthood, etc. Now, our entire channel deals with elements of ghosts, demons, and tonight we're specifically addressing a rash. And I do mean a rash, as in there's so many people right now that don't understand a lot of the terminology. They don't understand the invitation of temptation that causes oppression, and they're not quite sure about how a person gets from just, maybe playing with an Ouija board or playing with something that is invitational, how they get from that point to actually almost possessed or fully possessed, where they're showing those signs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So as we look at the broader picture here, we're looking at an official office. We're not talking about different denominations handle things differently, all right? You are not going to get an exorcist by calling the Office of Assemblies of God. You're not going to get an exorcist from calling, let's say, the Lutherans. They may have deliverance ministers, people that specifically work to help people that do deliverance and that will pray prayers of deliverance, that will, bind away and work with people. But it's going to be entirely different than the Office of Exorcism within the Roman Catholic Church. And when everybody's tried everything, you guys, that's the really amazing thing to me, is that we're still looking at a level of spiritual authority, a level of obedience, a level of, shall we say, holy servitude. Okay, because that's what I think of this is. That's exactly what I think of it is. We must serve. We must serve within the capacity and our experience of what we're called to do. God never calls those people that have every single bit of experience in the whole world. He calls you and says, hey, get over here. Guess what you're doing now? And you're like, just seriously, not me. Like Moses, I can't do this. And then he's like, oh yeah, you're going to do this. Same with the Office of Exorcism, folks. Some priests, they knew it all along. Padre Pio definitely was a mystic. He was not per se an exorcist, but he had the gift. When we're looking at today's Office of Exorcism, what we're seeing, as I was talking about in the beginning, is we're seeing a lot of people that call for things. I posted an article recently on the Facebook, The Real Deals on Facebook. There was an incident, and this is so common. They're so common here for whatever reason. And this was on a Native American reservation, and it doesn't matter. There are people all over Chicago, New York. They see someone that's affected, maybe by, and I'm gonna be very liberal here with my definitions, an incident of smoking, such as flakka, a student that may come back from the Amazon forest on a wonderful student trip to experience nature, maybe to do some ministry, and they took a whole ayahuasca journey, and now their child is maybe getting up in the middle of the night, maybe walking backwards, maybe talking strange, to where they're just not sure. They just don't know what's going on with their kid. They really don't know. And they think, well, let me call the exorcist, something's wrong. Sometimes, we're going to get to that. More often than not, what we have and what we're seeing is that these experiences, such as, I used to have this fabulous guy working for me. I mean, he worked so great, and I'm talking about on a landscape crew years ago. And I still smile when I think of him today, because he was just the sweetest guy, a short little guy, maybe about 5'7". The issue, like I'm talking about with these people that are doing drugs right now, what we're looking at is this guy did a lot of acid. And when I say a lot of acid, I mean, he did it daily, okay? He did so much of it that by the time he had got to my landscape crew, it was like about 10 years, okay, since he had done it last. But this poor kid, he would be up in a tree, and all of a sudden I'd see the tree shake. It's not funny, but what I'm saying is funny is that you don't know unless you've experienced it, so you act like an idiot. It's like somebody's seeing epilepsy for the first time. You think somebody's possessed. You think, oh my gosh, something's got to be wrong with him. So I am not laughing at the person or at the incident. What I'm laughing is my own stupidity. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known better. Because I've never done acid, never had a bad trip, never had, I don't remember what he called it, but he said he was just having flashbacks. So in other words, what he was doing is, instead of actually seeing the tree that he was actually working in and tying, he was actually seeing those visuals that he had actually experienced. And it was so realistic for him that he believed he was fighting something in that tree. And this is really, really sad. And this is very commonplace. If you are not familiar, if you have a family member that is potentially doing meth or is potentially lacing PCP, if they are using morphine, some of these drugs, this is not like the drugs that they were doing in the 60s. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is dangerous stuff, so dangerous. The drugs they are doing now, they're only beginning to calculate the loss of brain cells, the strange way that these drugs are interacting and causing people, like I said, their faces can contort, their bodies can contort. We've all seen those pictures. If you look at the internet and if you watch the news at all, we've all seen those pictures of people half naked and they are walking strange, and you look at them and the way they're mumbling, you seriously think, that person must be possessed. Chances are they had some very badly laced drugs. That's the reality of it. So when I am letting you know about people that are considering calling the Office of Exorcism because they've experienced something like this, or they've experienced someone acting like this, this is not the same thing. This is definitely not the same thing as somebody that truly has an oppression, that somebody that is truly experiencing something preternatural. And that's really hard to distinguish sometimes. And yes, I agree. When we talk about drugs causing flashbacks too, we've got somebody in chat saying something about paranormal flashbacks. And what I wouldn't even call it paranormal so much as I would call it exposure to the preternatural flashbacks, because I have personally seen people that have been exposed to demonic situations that years later, it's almost as if what the similarity compares to is a soldier in the battlefield, somebody that has gone to war and they have seen horrific blood loss and limbs and things that they would never tell anybody about. They would never, ever, ever want to share. And one little thing can trigger them. They can weep uncontrollably. They can get very, very violent. They can have a number of reactions. I mean, people call this PTSD. There's a lot of different psychological conditions that have labeled this for the drugs. And the reason that people are calling the Office of Exorcism right now, what we're seeing is we're seeing reactions to these drugs that I tell you, I'm a musician. I've hung around musicians. I've hung around just about every level of society, okay? I've never seen anything like this before. And it's so incredibly sad. It's very horrific. Let me put it that way. So drugs aside, when someone is thinking about calling the Office of Exorcism, you have to eliminate any possibility of previous and current drug use. That is one of the number one things. It's any Office of Exorcism is going to have someone like myself, or potentially a secretary, someone that is in charge of taking all the details before it goes to either a discernment team or someone, an investigative team, someone that will do deliverance prayers with the people before they get to the exorcist. And that's kind of me. I'm kind of like one of those in-between people that I can like handle everything to a certain extent. So one of the number one questions that this person is going to need to have on deck, what are the current medications? Okay? This doesn't mean that people that take antipsychotics, people that take bipolar medication, people that take there's a variety of different medications that will alter the way we speak, the way we walk, that will completely change almost our gait. They affect us that much. So if you suspect your fiance, and this has come up quite a few times, that somebody will be engaged to somebody for a while and then find out that they've been on this medication and they're having nightmares and there's all these horrible things going on and they just don't understand it. Come to find out that not only is the person on a level of medications that are controlling some of the symptoms they're experiencing, but this person had a preternatural experience. And that preternatural experience affected them so much that they needed to get some sort of medication and relief for it. So when you have that sort of suspicion that the person that is taking drugs or that has taken drugs or that is struggling, you have to get to the bottom of it. List all medications. List previous contact with psychotics, psychotic drugs, such as psilocybin, LSD, that sort of thing. Because what you're looking at, that is going to be one of the leveling fields for the person that is going to get you to the exorcist to look at what the symptoms are. And if they don't know, like myself, I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist, but I have a variety. I just got a huge library. I look up stuff if I don't know it. Most of the drugs I do have an idea about. The ones where it's abnormal psychology, I will call and I will find out and I will double check and triple check, because we cannot make assumptions that somebody that is taking a medication for something that acts in one way with one person may work completely different with another person. Oh, I'm sorry. So you guys got buffering issues. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to check the connection. That's crazy. Unless you guys are talking about the supernatural buffering. I saw that earlier. I think the video is buffering a little bit and we're losing some of this stuff. I apologize. When it downloads, it ought to be solid. So hang in there with me. All right, you guys, please. So we're talking about medications. That's the number one thing. We must know what's in the bloodstream, what's been in the bloodstream. There was a case that came through, and it was amazing because the family was convinced that this boy, and he wasn't really a boy, he was probably about 25, so he's a young man. He was possessed because, for whatever reason, before he would wake up, he would start talking to himself, and it was pretty much gibberish, but they thought it was another language. So they were recording what he was saying, and they were trying to talk to him, and he was dead out of it. He was absolutely asleep. That was the first thing that they thought. Then, what else was it? He had a temper. And he would pick things up and just throw them. They said, he's just so strong, and we don't know what's wrong with him. So, what's going on here? Family is convinced he's angry, he's hostile, he's speaking in a different language. His face is freezing up, that kind of thing. So what we had to do is we had to go over and get a complete, and I do mean a complete background of what he had. And come to find out that this gentleman had been involved with smoking bath salts just once. Just once. Then he had run-ins, I think it was methamphetamines. So between the meth, the bath salts, and I think there was something else he had. I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty serious stuff, you guys. So we had a combination of symptoms from the drugs that he was using that caused the people around him to completely they couldn't understand. They thought all the paranormal shows they watched, here we go again, kids, Everybody's watching those fabulous paranormal shows, but guess what? They weren't getting it. They were getting what they wanted out of the paranormal shows, and they were applying it to this kid and calling the Office of Exorcism going, my kid needs an exorcism. And he didn't. It was the farthest thing from it. He really didn't need an exorcism. What he needed was, he needed some understanding, he needed some therapy, and he totally needed a detox. Absolutely needed a detox. So, as we look at this list, I need my glasses. All right, so when we look at calling the Office of Exorcism for abnormal, behaviors, we have to figure out what is it that the exorcist office, what do they need to know? So number one thing is all the drugs that they've ever done, that they're currently on, and everything else. So got to know about that. Second most important thing, we all have had issues. We've all had either traumatic childhoods, we've all had incidents in our lives where we have incidents in our lives that cause us to have little mini freakouts from time to time. Whether you've been in a car accident, or like me, you lose a child, or a death. You lose somebody that you really, really love, your mother, your father, your husband. Those kind of things can stress you out to the point that you might need to go see a therapist for a while, and there's nothing wrong with that. The point is that if this carries on, so in other words, if the sadness, if the depression, if what the person is experiencing, if it goes on and if it carries on for such a period of time that there needs to be medication involved, which usually happens, and that's okay too. The doctor diagnoses it to the point where he thinks that maybe there might be something more involved, so you've got multiple diagnoses. The exorcist needs to know that. Now, why does the exorcist need to know this? Why is the exorcist so interested in your mental health? Because the symptoms of certain mental health illnesses can cause the people around them to think that there might be something that is irregular, that is supernatural, that is abnormal, as we were talking about with the drugs. Mental illness can cause this too. And I was having this, yes, dementia is a really good one, and psych patients, exactly. When you look at some of the behaviors, all right, people that are, and I've known a lot of schizophrenics, okay? Not every schizophrenic is alike, and not every dementia patient is alike either. So we have to look at everyone as an individual. But we also have to look at the propensity for people to look at these symptoms from the outside as creating something that is abnormal, not necessarily a reason to call the exorcist. And that's the whole reason. If you're just joining us, you guys, I really thank you for joining us. Give us a like, please. Subscribe if you'd like to support. You can PayPal us at paypal.me/read deals. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about calling the Office of Exorcism, all right? So, as we look at the whole concept of mental illness and what a person's experiencing, how long did they experiencing it? And I'm really sorry about the buffering. Hopefully I can work it out when I relist the entire program. Hang in with me if you guys. Sorry, Deb. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of. It is something that a lot of people go through, and at one point in our lives we're all going to go through something that's really going to stress us out, make us sad, and everything else. So mark down any mental illnesses, any treatments, etc. Okay, so you've got medication, mental illness. What else does an exorcist need to know? Because I will tell you, a lot of people would pick up the phone and say, I need an exorcism. Can I have one, like, yesterday? Those are not the people that really need an exorcism. Not at all. The people that usually need the exorcism, those are the people that are living with someone that are losing periods of time. Those are the people that are, they have inexplicable, hey Jacob! Well, let's see. Sorry for the interruption, folks. Hopefully everybody's still with us. That was exciting. You never know what's going to happen around here. I'll tell you what. It just keeps getting more and more exciting. How much more excitement can we get? So, we had a question from the chat room when we experienced a little bit of buffering. I'm probably going to have to take this down and totally redo this. I apologize for the delays and the buffering. If I have to, I'm going to have to do the show again. So I apologize. We were just talking about mental illness. We were talking about drugs. And for whatever reason, our added delay for normal latency is just not working. Oh, I'm so glad you can hear me, Tony. I'm sitting here talking to myself thinking, I'm really going to have to chop this video up. But Tony brought up something really, really good that a lot of people want to know. Do they call the Office of Exorcism if they think their house is infested or haunted or something like that? No, please don't do that. Don't call the Office of Exorcism if you think your house is haunted or infested. That's a job for your local ordinary, your priest. Just call the priest. The priest can deal with it, okay? That's the most important thing to remember, is that that's what your priest is there for, okay? Your priest is there to help you out. If you think your house is infested, get a priest there. And if a priest sees something, they will contact the Office of Exorcism for you because that's their job. So you have to just worry about taking care of what you can worry, and then let's let your priest take care of what your priest can take care of, all right? Hope that answered that question for you. Sorry about the delay, kids. Now, there are a number of things we look at. As I was saying earlier, calling the Office of Exorcism, and I'm still buffering. Can you believe that? You guys, it's just a night for buffering. I'll have to look at this and see if I can download it and maybe chop it up a little bit, because it's crazy tonight. So, all right, now, there was one other question here. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I'll get to that at the end of the show. What else do you need for the Office of Exorcism, kiddies? The Office of Exorcism is going to ask, now whether it's a secretary or it's somebody like me, besides mental illness, okay, and all drug use, the number 3 thing they usually ask, because a lot of times, like I said, mental illness and the use of drugs is going to mimic things and any kind of instances that may be considered potentially a possession. The third thing I've got to know, and the Office of Exorcism is going to need to know, kids, is what sort of invitational occult have they been exposed to? As in Ouija boards, seances, astrology, rune casting, any kind of tea leaves. Let's see. What other kind of things could we potentially do? There are games the kids play, Charlie, that sort of thing. Yes. There are so many invitational things. And we just had a show that outlined some of the most popular invitational things that some people can use these for years. And they use these ghost meters, EVP meters. You can take your cell phone and you can download just about any app to determine if there are any kind of presences. You can find hot spots. It's just crazy. Now, is it accurate and true? I don't think so. But a lot of people, they believe in this stuff, you guys. So that's what you need to do. Exactly, Tony. Palm reading. There are a number of people that will tell your fortune, that will tell your future, that will say, well, I'm looking into a mirror or crystal ball. There was a question probably 3 or 4 shows ago asking specifically, well, if I go with my friend, is this going to affect me? And I will tell you, yes, it can. All right? So don't think it can't, because it can. So you basically want to stay away completely. Okay? Just don't go there. And if you find yourself with a group of people, let's say they all decide, we're going to go to the park and we're going to get our palms read and we're going to have fun. Guess what? Just go away. Go to the other side of the park. Don't go with them. That's just, for those of you. So we want to know any and all kind of occult activity. Most people are not going to have any idea. And they're going to have to go to the person that they think is oppressed or possessed, and they're going to have to ask them specifically. A lot of times people don't remember this. They don't remember an incident because it is so mainstream. We all think that doing these things is rather harmless, and it's really not harmless. So be on the lookout for that. So I'm going to want any and all, anything that you played with. That's right, Bloody Mary, Crazy 8-Ball. The problem with this stuff is what you're doing is you're putting your trust. Instead of saying, okay, God, I'm going to rely on you, and I'm going to take your word for what you've got going on in my life, and I'm going to depend on something else to tell me what I need to know. Not good. So, all right. That was the number 3 thing, all right? Number 4. This is a really difficult one to talk to people about because people they underestimate the ability of this insidiousness in our culture. We live in a culture that does not value modesty. And why are we asking about this? Why are we asking about this? We are asking about a person's shall we say, sexual practices. There's no other way around it. Why are you going to want to say, well, the person I'm calling about, they're in a relationship and they've slept around a lot, and the last boyfriend was a voodoo artist, and the boyfriend before that got her drinking blood. You're going to want to have an idea of who has been with this person. And I tell you this because the addiction to pornography is very, very, very oppressive. Yes. You think, well, pornography, how can that, lead to any kind of, how can that lead to possession? You don't want to know. I will tell you this, though, that it is so invitational, images and being exposed to it. And if you look at any of our modern day TV right now, most of it's soft porn. You can look at it. Most of it's soft porn. What do I mean by porn? There is no modesty. People, they don't comport themselves and value themselves with any sort of modesty as a child of God. They walk around as if everything they have is free, and they're willing to share it with anyone. And that kind of, shall we say, invitation, that is like painting a big, bright, red bullseye on you for any kind of succubus, incubus attack. It is a very, very insidious, demonic group, and that will come after you. So we totally need that information, all right? And it will be couched in a very delicate way. It will be said in a very delicate way, but we must know. So, got that all. Doing good in chat? Yay! Give me a thumbs up, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. I know this show is just crazy, isn't it, kids? All right, so we've got, oh, goodness gracious. So when we talked about drugs, most people think about, smoking, like somebody mentioned in the chat room, smoking weed, all sorts of hallucinogenics. A lot of people don't think about, well, the person's been an alcoholic for 40 or 50 years. It's just, you don't think about the seriousness of alcohol. You don't think about, well, the person's been taking pain meds. There I go, buffering again. Sorry about that, guys. The person's been taking pain meds for so long. This is a mega, 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 mega issue. And it can be very, very difficult. Looks like I'm offline again. But I'm just going to keep going on because you know what? I'll eventually come back on. Yes, I will. I'm having fun. So, as I was saying, alcohol is an issue. Big issue. Alcohol, also pain meds. All right, because pain meds, people don't understand that and a lot of people need pain meds desperately. I am not knocking pain meds at all, kids. But what I am telling you is that they are so dangerous that when we overdo pain meds, anything we use, anything we choose to use, this is very dangerous. All right, George has a question from chat that I have to address because not a lot of people, if they are not, if they don't understand demonology, an incubus and a succubus are demons that entice you in your dreams to sex. They will touch you in your dreams. They will touch you while you are awake for sex, okay? It's very, very serious, very, very dangerous. So it is real. It is something. Okay, so also, when we talk about contacting the exorcist office and letting them know what this person is going through, another one that we really need to know is, as we talk about mental illnesses and we talk about things that bother people and that really give them a lot of grief and sadness, the kind of thing an exorcist officer, I'm going to need to know, has this person tried to commit suicide? Is this person experiencing suicidal thoughts? When was the last time this person had a suicidal thought? And this is really, really sad because a lot of times when people are so oppressed, and this is what the demons want to do. The demons want to get in an abusive relationship with the person that they're oppressing. They want to control them with their obsessions, their thoughts, their desires, their dependence on drugs, their reliance on anger, on pornography, and they want to let them believe there's no way out. There is no way they can ever be free of this. There is no way. And that is the big lie. So if you find yourself calling the Office of Exorcism for somebody, the person you're talking to needs to know about suicidal tendencies. Another thing that has cropped up, and I'd say in my work with youth, and because I've worked with children for many, many years, it used to be that, and I'm talking probably 30 years ago, kids would pick at themselves. They would pick scabs and sores, and they'd pull hair. Today, they take razor blades and they cut themselves in places where people can't see. And it's not very well known, but it's one of those things that somebody is screaming so loud for help for. It's cutting. That, in a sense, is they're trying to kill themselves slowly. So please put that on your list, that this cutting, this type of thing is very, very serious. And it is a form of, it's a form of slow suicide. Almost as if the alcoholic or the person that is taking so many drugs, they're slowly killing themselves. Well, the person that's cutting themselves is too. So that's a really sad one, because I hate to see kids do that to themselves. So drug, alcohol, occult practices. One of the other things that's a really big indicator of a mega problem, and something that we look for, is who has witnessed what around a person. So if you're trying to get an exorcist for somebody, you're going to be looking at who lives around this person. Does a person live alone? That is one of the number one things that tell me that the person is probably more oppressed than possessed, and may not need an exorcist, but may need mental health intervention. And mental health intervention is incredibly important. So we look at, is the person living by themselves? Then they make an excellent target. Is the person currently living by themselves? Have they lived by themselves? They choose to live by themselves. Their living situation is very important. How many people have actually seen, heard, witnessed, experienced what this person may be going through? Any of the signs. And we'll cover that because we're almost to the end of the show. But what you're looking at is you're looking at a pattern that the demons have focused on to basically tag someone and separate them from people that love them. And these are the ways they do it: through alcohol abuse, through anxiety and mental illnesses, through patterns of abusing themselves sexually so that they have no care for themselves, cutting and abusing themselves that way, self-mutilation, as you've said. And when we look at victims of abuse, there are a lot of victims of abuse that have succumbed to oppression, and it gets worse and worse and worse till they want it. They can't handle it anymore. It's absolutely horrible. It's absolutely horrible, kids. Another thing too is involvement in, because there's a lot of people that get involved, and this is something that you don't hear a lot of, but it may not be on all, it might not be on everybody's list, but involvement in any kind of cult. Now, what do I mean by cult? I'm not talking about occult. I'm talking about cult. So I'm talking about alternative lifestyles, S&M, bondage. I'm talking about most of these alternative lifestyles. And, I don't want it to be just hold on to your hats here, kids. There's a lot of anime that is in, comic book play acting, Star Wars play acting, that's it's just fun, it's just dress up, it's okay. And then you have the kids that are, doing the whole vampire thing and drinking each other's blood. That is just borderline, just kind of sick and wrong. But they think that they belong to some kind of exclusive group and they're going to be having some kind of powers. If a person has been exposed to that, or they were involved in that, or let's even say worse yet, that their parents were involved in it and their parents got them involved, and you are involved with somebody that has gone through this, the Office of Exorcism needs to know that. Basically because the person's level of oppression and potential possession may be worse than you have any idea. People that are brought up in these sort of alternative lifestyle, witchcraft, satanic cults, you're not going to know it from the outside, because a lot of times the person is programmed even before, when they're in the womb, and then they come out and they're used and they don't really remember it. They have blockages of memories of when they were used, abused, sold, mistreated. They have scars, strange things on their body they don't remember how they got. So this is something that if you have knowledge of this, an exorcist assistant is going to want to know, because in order to get the person the help that they need, this is going to be a multi-layered, very challenging thing to have to unfold and look at. So there's so much going on. I think I basically covered the high points. There are a lot of personal things that we'll get into with someone. The main ones are there. When calling the Office of Exorcism, the Catholic Church is very, very specific about what will denote a possession. And those things must be there for an exorcism to take place. And that's why there's a way to determine this. So when calling, if you think you're possessed yourself, ask somebody that loves you. Ask somebody, say, hey, have you ever heard me talking in foreign languages? Have you ever seen me go cow tipping and throw a cow across the lawn? Or maybe have I ever predicted the future for you? That's supernatural knowledge, extraordinary strength, and knowledge of another language. There are these markers that must be present. Also, an aversion to things that are holy, such as holy water, holy metals, holy places. An aversion to prayer alone, say the person cannot pray, is not necessarily oppression or possession. So, we've covered and we've highlighted the most important things the Office of Exorcism needs to know from you. If you are calling in for someone else, they're going to need to know the basics. The mental health, current state of health, suicidal tendencies, cult activity. Oh, cult activity as in invitational, Ouija board, witchcraft, scrying. Cult activity as far as involvement in any type of S&M, sadism, masochism, satanic occult, witchcraft. And there's a lot of strange cults out there, kids. So, I would love to hear your comments and more questions down below. Sorry Deb couldn't be here tonight. I have one final question I'm going to ask Tony. See, darling, unless you have one for me that you want to pull up, I've only got one question that I've got, and this actually came in from another video. So, the video was... Alternate Echo asks, hello, Farah, could you please take a quick minute and tell me exactly how can someone bless a house that you do not have authority over, such as a house that you would rent or an apartment? Now, there's a lot of talk about legal right. There's a lot of talk about, well, I don't own the house. I can't possibly potentially control what's going on. I'm gonna just basically kind of fill you in on the bigger picture here. There's a reason that God told us what you bind on earth, you bind in heaven. When we're talking about the property that you're living on, all right, the property belongs to someone else. I get that. Exorcists get that. You do not have to worry about that property. What you worry about is the property that you rent, the actual place, the domicile that you walk into, and the place that you call home. So you may think that you do not have a legal right to do that. You do have a legal right to do that because you have a contract, and this is what I tell people. If it is in your name, you have the authority, more so than a priest, to kick anything out that is there because you have that paperwork. You have that legal authority that was given to you. That space is yours. So if that space is yours, then you have the ability to get anything out of there that doesn't belong in there. All right? So if it's a house you're renting, take 4 St. Benedict medals, bury them in every single corner. Bless it. Exorcised water. Get your exorcised frankincense and myrrh. Smoke that house out. Leave a window cracked. Back to front. Get rid of them. Holy water. And depending on how often and how many different people that you do have over, bless it as often as possible. Once a week and more. If you're having nightmares, heck, bless it on a regular basis, every night if you need to. And last but not least, a lot of people think, apartment complex living. Well, oh my gosh. And I will tell you that I lived in a condo even too, that the person next to me was actually selling drugs like all night long. Now, I'm not talking about illegal drugs. I'm talking about legal drugs, as in, pill form and that sort of thing. But the place really smelled, and I found out later that she was cooking something in there. I don't know exactly what it was. The point was that my place was clean because my condo, this cool townhouse that I had, was clean. It was sealed. Why? Because my contract for my property covered my area. All right? So I didn't have nightmares. I didn't wake up at all hours. Sometimes, if the people were loud and raucous, I'd hear them because I had this fabulous balcony that I'd watch the northern lights. It was so beautiful. Northern lights up way up north. But I didn't have nightmares because of these people. And that's what people think, is they think, my gosh, so-and-so lives next door. Or I had this one case where and this person was so intent that they were being haunted because her neighbor literally painted evil eyes and put them in the windows. She painted cardboard boxes with evil eyes and put them in the lawn. And this poor woman was going nuts. She was going insane. She's like, I can't handle it. Her anxiety was so high, she actually had to go to the doctor. She tried to sue the neighbor, and there was nothing that they could do. And these were homes this person owned. It was so sad. And this woman was just so intent on driving this other woman nuts with her artwork. She had just an obsession, and it all started. This is why we have to forgive. It all started with the one neighbor taking down a back piece of fence without asking the other neighbor. Even though it didn't belong to the neighbor, nothing was ever said. And it changed the back of the landscape with, windbreak, something like that. So the neighbor was upset. Nothing was ever talked about, and the battle began. This is the kind of invitational stuff we really need to avoid. we don't need this kind of stuff. We don't need to be invited to a dance of hatred. We don't need to be invited to get so angry at our neighbor that we do everything in our power to oppress them. So, as it's time to say goodnight, I want to remind you all that the battle's already been won. Completely. We've already seen that future. It's your job on this day. Pray to your guardian angel. Never forget that your guardian angel stands between you and anything that could possibly harm you. Never forget that that angel told God that he was going to love you. So, you must be pretty special to God. Don't forget that. God bless you. Don't forget to say your prayers. Give us a like. Share the video if you can. If you'd like to support us, don't forget to go to Patreon or PayPal. Thanks so much. Have a great night. And don't let the bed bugs bite. Thanks, Tony. You were such a big help, dear. And everybody, good night. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. It was kind of tough, wasn't it, tonight, huh? But guess what? We all got through it. Good night.
The Real Deals TV show, copyright 2018, a Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Kenneth and Barrow's Deal is strictly prohibited.